Hey, welcome to United Opposition with Scott and Marshall. Today we're talking what is likely going to be a future under Trump and what's that going to be like. Let's check it out. Well, hey, welcome to United Opposition with Scott and Marshall. How you doing, Marshall?
Doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm sitting back in a chair right now because my back is out, so I'm kind of in a stiff position. But I'm here for the show. Can't wait to talk about just maybe some current events of what's going on. It's kind of hard to not talk about what happened on Saturday with the assassin. I mean, would you call it an assassination attempt or an actual assassination? Because someone did die, just not the intended target. So
yeah, well, it's an assassination attempt on former President Trump.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable that it was not stopped prior to it happening.
Oh my gosh, we can even talk about that.
I don't even want to get into that because it's a whole thing. I don't think it was a conspiracy or anything. I don't think there's any particular dark forces behind it. I think it was just a kid wanting to.
I hate being the conspiracy theorist person. I don't want to be that. And I'm just looking like, okay, so nobody was watching the roof. There was already a ladder on the roof for the person. This person goes up there, and then they saw it was like, I don't want to be the conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Oh, man, this looks like a plot from a movie. But that's not how the direction we're going to go right now. We're going to be talking some things that you posted online, some talk about America in the future. Like you already started kind of going down this road the last time we talked, but now this event has kind of pushed you to really double down on that. And then I also want to talk a little bit about how we got here. So I'm going to say my opening statement. Marshall, you'll say your opening statement that we're going to discuss. But basically, what I want to say is, I think belief in the idea that language and ideology can be violent is what led to this attempted assassination. And I also think that now that we can agree that Trump is more likely going to win, I don't think our future is as bleak as you think it is, Marshall. And I think you're so steeped in your subject of history and your field of history that you kind of see this as justification for devoting your life to this topic. And that where you think we're going is not necessarily based on reality, but based on you seeing things only through the lens of history. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about those two parts of this. Marshall?
Yeah, well, I think that's the power and the purpose of history is to tell us, what's going to happen in the future based on what happened in the past. Because humans are the same creatures we were 10,000 years ago. We haven't really evolved from that time. Our brains are the same. And I do think that the future under Trump won't be as bad as I think. I think it'll actually be worse. And maybe it won't be Trump himself, but I think what comes after Trump is where the hammer will really fall. And I think we're in a time of great national danger, the same way that the Roman Republic was under Caesar or the empire under Commodus. And to me, I'm seeing a lot of parallels between these guys. And I'm afraid we're already across the Rubicon here. So I'm a little worried for the future.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll get ready to discuss. But first, we want to thank our sponsor, Covenant Coffee, Hope in a Cup. Sorry, I did that reverse. Covenant Coffee, Hope in a Cup. Get your coffee at Covenant Coffee. They support emancipated foster youth who age out of the system, and they give them a place to have a job, a place to be mentored, a place to live, and doing a really, really amazing ministry there. You can get Covenant Coffee at a couple different locations here in Bakersfield, and we just want to thank Covenant Coffee for not only supporting 511, but also for supporting our community and for the kids in our community. So I'm going to give my little 511 Covenant Coffee ASMR sip. Now we are ready to begin our discussion. So I want to start off. I want to start off with this. Let's go ahead and put up the slide that I found. Recent poll examines support for political violence in the U.S. This is a nationwide poll last month found that 10% of those surveyed said the use of force is justified to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. And I think this stems, Marshall. I think this stems from people who spew the same rhetoric that you've been spewing, which is language is violence, ideology is violence, punch a Nazi, all of that people believe. And when people believe that language is violence, then they will take actions like this. And and the danger is that they believe that language is violence when it is not. This is not a rational, reasoned response to someone's ideology. Violence is not a reasoned, rational response to someone's ideology. But you seem to carry the argument that it can be.
Correct. Yeah. And I've got, I did some research prior to this. I mean, J.D. Vance, who may be our next vice president himself, referred to Trump as America's Hitler. I've done some research into, is Donald Trump a fascist, with some mixed results. But there's a lot of fascist language in his commentary. Again, I have sources on this, and I'm looking at my notes over here on my other screen where I have it. Not to mention, he talks like a demagogue. He doesn't talk like a presidential figure, or I should say an American presidential figure, but rather as a demagogue. And the part that clued me in was way back in 2015 when he was accepting the Republican presidential nomination. Prior to that, I knew him only from his interactions on film. I knew that he had done some bankruptcies and that there were allegations of some shady business deals and stuff, but I was kind of willing to overlook that. And I was very hopeful that if he got elected, being a builder, being a construction guy, he would pour his energy into infrastructure in America and truly make the country great again. But then he got up on speech during his acceptance speech.
Where's your hat? Where's your hat? You got to put your hat on.
Yeah, well, I have it here, but I didn't buy it because I'm a supporter. I bought it as a grim souvenir.
Oh, you bought it and wear it ironically?
No, I don't wear it at all.
But you had it on earlier.
Yeah, that was just for you, Scott. That was
ironically, that's the thing. That was you were wearing it ironically.
Yeah, but here's the deal, right? Here's the deal. When he gave his acceptance speech at the Republican convention in 2015, he made a statement that set off alarm bells. He said, "Only I can solve this problem." I think he was talking about the economic state of the country or something, but this "only I" statement set off alarm bells because that's not the way a president of the United States speaks or should speak at all. It was unacceptable. It clued me in that this guy is kind of a megalomaniac. And what he did following that, all of his little actions, all of his little speeches and so on, just kind of reinforced that fear. And so when he first got elected, I was still hopeful that maybe he would be constructive and put his energies into building up our infrastructure and making America truly strong and great again. Didn't happen at all. And so now what I've observed is he eroded the institutions and the traditions of our nation and of our government. And I'm really concerned with that in particular, because I think that once those things fall apart, then the whole nation comes up for grabs.
But
and once the nation's up, go ahead.
I feel like you're deflecting because that's not really what we're talking about. You're trying to justify. It sounds like you're trying to justify why you think people think he's a Nazi, or you think people think he's a fascist, or and that's not the thing. The thing is, my point is, it doesn't matter if the person is saying what the person is saying. It doesn't matter what it's what they're saying, and their ideology, I don't believe is enough to be violent against them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you think he's a Nazi. It doesn't matter if you think he's a fascist. It doesn't matter if you think that he's bad for the country or whatever like that. None of those thoughts and opinions of what you think of their ideology or what you think of what they say gives you the right to be violent. And I think that the type of thinking that you've been espousing, which is words can be violent, and that obviously it seems like at least 10% of America agree with you that it's justified to be violent against someone's ideology, I think is a really bad thing. I think it's a really bad turn. I mean, whatever happened to us growing up, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Like, words can never hurt me. Words shouldn't be able to hurt us. We should not be reacting violently to words or someone's ideology. We face them off ideologically, and we face them off. And yes, if you don't believe in them, then defeat them ideologically. Fight ideology with ideology. But as soon as you think you're justified in taking violent action against someone's ideology, that's irrational. That's not rational. It cannot be where we go as a society. And because I'm afraid because we show all these things, and even that slide that I showed that talked about that, or we show the video, I don't know if you've seen it, where it's the montage of all the people on the left talking about how they want to kill, it's too bad, where's John Wilkes Booth and we need him, all these, you've seen that video, all this rhetoric that has charged people up with the idea that you're right, he is dangerous and he needs to be stopped. I'm afraid that we're going to go the direction, instead of saying, hey, stop believing that ideology is justifiable for violent action, I'm afraid we're just going to double down on, now you can't say these things. And that's the wrong response. I'm afraid that the response is going to be, okay, you can no longer say this. We're just going to add to the list of what you can no longer say, when the real fix is stop believing that you're justified in having violent actions against someone's words or beliefs.
Yeah.
That's what needs to be corrected. Not you need to stop, not people need to stop having these beliefs, and people need to stop having these ideologies, or people need to stop talking about, defeating. Those are both the wrong direction. Your direction of saying, they shouldn't have these ideologies, or the direction people saying people shouldn't talk about it. The real solution is stop thinking that you're justified in taking violent action over someone's words. That's what I feel is the real answer to this.
Okay, so words have power. That's why we have this show. That's why we're doing dialogue here, because words do have power. This is why propaganda exists. It's why censorship exists. And I think we can abhor propaganda and censorship regardless of whether it comes from the left or from the right. And just as you are afraid that the list of things that we cannot say and this is bad and so on is going to come out of the left and be forced upon you with the threat of violence, there are also people like myself who are deeply concerned that the same thing is going to happen, but from the right, because there are extremists on both sides. I will tell you now, for the sake of clarity, I do not advocate for the assassination of former President Trump or any particular individual.
Nor did I think you needed to clarify that. I think.
Okay, I just want to be very clear, because our audience, you know me, Scott, but the audience does not. So I want to be very clear about that. I do not condone what happened, neither the attempt at it. If Trump is to be dealt with, it should be by legal means or at the ballot box, but it should not be through an assassination. I do not agree with, the stabbing of Caesar per se. And it's not even clear. I think he will be a Caesar type figure, a blend, like I say, of Caesar and Commodus. And then what follows is where the real nightmare is going to kick in, because I see him eroding the institutions. But I do think that, yes, words can be violent. And at a certain, depending on the time, the circumstance, the context, if you will, a reaction to certain words may be appropriate. This is why fighting words are an exception to the First Amendment. There are certain exceptions to the First Amendment.
All right, fine. So then how about that video of all of that video montage of all these people on the left effectively saying where we should kill Trump? Do you think violent actions are justified against them?
I don't think they should be saying that. I think that's a terrible thing to say.
Not my question. That's not my question. Do you think violent actions are justified against them for saying that?
If they are making a legitimate terrorist threat, the answer is yes.
Somebody holding up a head.
They need to be placed under legal sanction, meaning they probably need to be arrested. They need to go to court, and they need to be punished. That's not the argument. Irresponsible speech in the public sphere.
No, that's not the argument you were making a minute ago. The argument you were making a minute ago is that violent actions are justified. Are justified against fighting words, as you said. So
okay, but when somebody with the camera comes to you, Scott, and says, "What do you think about the president?" That's not a fighting word situation. Your life and your property are not in imminent danger, so there is no reason for you to make a statement like that. To me, those statements are irresponsible. And those people should, at a minimum, be condemned for making those statements. Those statements, they need to understand that the things they have said are inappropriate.
Right, but then how is it different for the things that Trump said? Isn't that just, you think that some of his sayings, that what he said would be considered, is justifiably considered violent?
Well, my reaction to the things that he said, you already well know. I didn't vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
I do not support him, and I will advocate for him to be defeated legally and legitimately and fairly at the ballot box. And that's the limit of my advocacy. I do not advocate that somebody should stab him in the steps of the Senate or shoot him from a building while he's giving a speech.
So here's the thing. Here's what I feel is the difference between you and me, is that I will never advocate anybody taking any violent action for anything that anyone says. And it troubles me that you can't make that same statement.
Well, because again, I understand Michel Foucault in particular, who really nailed it on the head when he explained that words are power, language is power. And the purpose of words and language is to manipulate and to control. And at a certain point, when that manipulation and that control treads upon the very being of people's very being, their very lives are endangered by language, I believe that people have an inherent right to self-defense. And that's it. And now only under that narrow circumstance do I believe a violent response is justified. Outside of that, no, I disagree.
No, but your narrow defense still falls in within the purview of the person's opinion. That person if that person believes that what that person is saying is violent, then they are encouraged by you to take violent action in return, because they're saying you're right. The problem with your position is that it's based on an individual's belief of whether or not they interpret it as violent language. That's why I say it is never at any time. I cannot condone at any time anything anybody says as being justifiable for any kind of violent action. And it troubles me that you can't say that because your position is leaving it in the hands of the person who feels offended. If they
not entirely, because there is a legal standard which is called reasonability, and you have to convince a judge and 12 jurors that you reasonably felt entitled to use lethal force or aggressive force, some kind of force to defend yourself against another person's words. And you're going to have to defend yourself in court, which I believe is a reasonable test. Let me ask you this, Scott. How many times have people used fighting words and made your life feel like your life was in danger? Has that ever happened to you? And how many times has that happened?
I've never been in situations where it was overtly done to me. There was one person I was in a position of authority, and I was asking them to kind of obey the rules of the place where we were at. And they said, if you don't get out of my face, you and I are going to have a problem. And I just simply respond, I'm not going to have a problem with you. I'm not. and it kind of backed off from there. That's probably the closest I've ever been to somebody. But it was just like, no, I won't have a problem with you. And so that's the closest I've ever gotten. But again, I've never really put myself in positions where I'm around those kind of situations.
Right. So my point of that question is that that this is rare. The actual time or occasion where something like this is going to happen to any given person, it's pretty rare.
Yeah.
It's extremely rare. It's practically non-existent for white males in America in particular.
Oh gosh.
You could probably go your whole life and not have but one or two, if not zero, such incidents. If you're a minority, it may
have to make it about race.
Because race exists. I'm sorry, it exists. It's a thing. Okay. And whether it's a social construct or whatever, we can argue that. But at the end of the day, race matters in America. And there you have it. So
only if you let it.
Only what?
Only if you let it. Oh, hey, we lost Marshall. He's going to try to reconnect right here. I don't want to really continue too much of the conversation without him having a chance to respond. I'm not sure what happened or let's see. We're inviting him back on there, but I don't want to continue too much of the conversation without him because I don't like there to be talking from one side. But yeah, you can see we were going on this and the difference in our positions, and I want to give Marshall a chance to come back on and connect before we. Should have the same link, Darius. So hopefully he can come back on, but maybe his computer died. Maybe I do need to continue this conversation. Do we have any comments on there that I can read? Do we have any comments on what was brought up, or we're trying to get Marshall connected back up on here? Some of it's a little difficult to find out. Let's see. Let's count. We have Count of Mafia 420. It's kind of difficult to read what you're saying. This is one of those things where it's like, I'm Gen X. I'm old school. I type my comments and my texts like incomplete sentences with punctuation, so it's tough for me to read when it's shortcutted. I think we got Marshall back on. Can we get him plugged in? There we go. And add him in. There we are.
Did we drop, or was it just a me problem?
What's that? I was on. I was trying to talk my way through. We're trying to get Marshall back on. So you disconnected, and I think I was still on. I think it was still going. I did not want to continue the conversation without you. So I was just trying to. I was treading water. Hopefully
go ahead. It's not like I listen anyway, Scott.
No, so I want to give you respect, and I don't want to be like, well, hey, he's not here. Right. I'm gonna say all of my points while he's not on.
Well, go ahead. Let's pick up where we left off. I don't know what happened, but here we are.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So again, that's part of the argument. But before we get in, we got about 9 minutes left here. I want to get into the second part of this, and that is trying to talk you down from the edge. And I think what's happening with you, I think this is something that I see happen with pastors when we're talking about the rapture and the end times. I believe it's what happened during COVID with all the people who were involved in all the viral doctors and Fauci and all that kind of stuff. And I see it happening with you. And that is, I feel like you are seeing this only through the lens of the time you have devoted to history. You majored in history. You have a degree in history, and you see these things and you see the parallels to history. So then you immediately jump to, this is what's going to happen. This will happen. This will happen. History here. And you jump to that because seeing it happen, I'm reading in here, so please forgive me, but I feel like it's one of those to where you see it happening, and now living through what you think you've been preparing for your whole life, now you think it's happening, and it feels like everything you devoted to history is now justified. You're justified in this position. I feel like when COVID hit, we had all these virologists and all these people who, they've been in there, they've been working there for 20, 30, 40 years, and suddenly here, this is the one. This is the one. This is the big one that we've been waiting for. This is the one that they talk about in movies that's going to kill everybody, and we need to. And they feel like they're part of it. Just like I feel pastors see things happening, and they're all, it's the end times. Every pastor thinks they're going to live through the end times, so they're going to see the rapture and all that kind of stuff. So every time they see anything in there, it feels like a justification for their position, a justification for and they go over the edge. And I feel like that's what's happening with you. I feel like you've devoted so much to history and you've read it all in there that you are reacting to, now I'm living through it, and everything that I thought was ever going to happen, now I actually see it happening. I'm trying to back you off from the edge. Like, Marshall, I don't think it's as bad as you think it is. I think you're being clouded by the fact that you are a history major.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you could be very correct about that. Although I will tell you, this isn't something that I ever thought I would see in my lifetime. It's not something that I hope to see. I think it will be very terrible for all of us. It will be terrible for me personally. It'll be a disaster. Don't. I don't think that you are I don't think that you are hoping for it. That's not what I meant. Right. I just want to be clear. Now, I hope that you're correct and that I'm, the sky is falling Chicken Little here rather than a Cassandra. But the fact is, what are you willing to bet on this? Are we willing to bet the future of our nation that Trump is going to just kind of work out okay, and that the future after Trump is going to be just fine?
I just think every election cycle that I've seen in the past 40 years that I've been, 30 some odd years since I've been actually paying attention to it, I see this rhetoric every single time. If this person's elected, America's going to die. It's just, I've seen so much of it. It's like, you know what? Just calm down. It's not the end of the country. It's not the end of the world. I mean, I remember 2015 and everybody 2015 and 2016, everybody like, if Trump gets elected, he's going to launch nuclear missiles as soon as somebody says a bad word to him. And it's like, calm down, everybody.
Right.
Calm down.
Yeah. In general, nothing is ever as good
remain
or
calm
as bad as it first appears. And when nations and civilizations collapse, it's not like, the zombie movies where everybody's out there pushing a shopping cart and preying upon one another. That doesn't happen, at least not until day 3. But no, I'm kidding. But generally, like the collapse of the Roman Empire,
you have to make sure you have enough ammunition to make it to day 3.
Right. But like the collapse of the Roman Empire, and I think what we'll see here is it's going to be a slow and gradual decline. There may be 1 or 2 calamitous events like the sack of Rome, kind of happen and so on. But I really think it will just be a slow, depressing decline. You're still going to have to go to work. And I've told people this, you're still going to have to go to work. Mm-hmm. The day after America collapses, you got to go to work. Because
and are you saying that day is coming up on November 2nd?
No, January 15th or whatever inauguration day is.
21st,
yeah. No, again, I'm not so worried about Trump. I'm worried about what comes after. I'm worried that if he erodes...
I want to correct you, because you're saying he's going to erode. So really the problem isn't who's coming after him. You're saying the problem really is Trump, that Trump will erode so that the person coming after him. So really you are saying the problem is Trump.
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Okay, in a way you're correct. But I don't think this is going to spin up until after him. It's just like Caesar.
Because you're not afraid of Biden eroding these, right? Yeah, that's not a fear, even though that's potentially reality. You're not afraid of Biden eroding all these things. You're afraid of Trump eroding the things and the person coming after him. So
because Biden hasn't done that bad of a job.
No. He hasn't used the power of the FBI or he hasn't used the power of the IRS. He hasn't used the power of the courts or anything like that against his political enemies. That hasn't happened.
Well, that's a whole nother episode, but I don't think that's
you don't consider that.
But neither,
you don't consider that erodes our nation.
I do think that is something that erodes our nation. But when you compare what Biden's 4 years were like compared to Trump's 4 years, to me, I think that the decline was a lot more accelerated under Trump administration, because Trump he's not a politician. Have I what?
Have you looked at your bank account or your wallet since Biden?
Actually, I have, and I'm well aware of that. But here's the thing. The bottom line is, I think that Trump eats away at the foundation and the fabric of our society enough that somebody will come after him claiming to be the next, Caesar Augustus, if you will. And then that person will gain a lot of support and acclaim. And then once they're in power, that's when the bad things happen. It's just like Adolf Hitler, when before Hitler seized power, a lot of people like, well, maybe we can kind of tolerate it. Maybe it won't be so bad. He's just one guy. What can he do? And then once he consolidated power, then of course we have what history has for us. And I think the same thing will happen. I don't think Trump will be that guy. I think it will be someone after him.
I was going to say, so we're 28 minutes into our podcast and we finally got to Marshall saying Trump is Hitler.
No, Trump is not Hitler. Somebody following him will be.
I had to give you a bad time.
Maybe Trump is Bismarck or something. I don't know, but he ain't Hitler. Maybe he's Hindenburg. That's probably a better comparison.
Okay, so I think you and I can agree after this whole discussion that maybe people can kind of calm down a little bit.
Yeah, we do need to. And despite my concerns, I do think that hope is a viable option here. We need to be hopeful. We need to look towards unity rather than division. And we need to hope and pray, because even if we elect a Democrat, our nation will still be in a state of decline. It's just going to be a little slower. And my hope, my prayer, if you will, is that we will figure out how to reverse this somehow, thanks to things like AI and automation and modern technology and whatever it may be, psychology, things that we haven't had traditionally in history. Perhaps we can figure out some new technology, if you will, that can reverse our decline and our collapse. That's my hope, because if not for that, well, history does what history does. It repeats. So.
Well, you and I both have hope in that. And then I really want to say this, and I'm going to take this as the chance to take the last word. People, please, violent actions are never justified for someone's ideology. Please don't take violent actions because you believe someone's ideology is dangerous. Please don't do that. I want to say that. But coming out from there next week, barring any other huge events happening in the news, we'll see what we're talking about. But this has been United Opposition with Scott and Marshall, where people from two sides of ideology can come together. Even in our opposition, we can be united and talk civilly. And we hope that this is an example for our country, our nation, for the people of this nation to be able to realize you can talk civilly, and we can stay civil in this discussion. So until next time, see you guys later.
Goodbye.